The first character ever voted out of Battle for Dream Island was Flower, the show's resident villain, vain, short-tempered, and in the habit of attacking anyone who failed to call her beautiful.
Ice Cube, don't you think I look beautiful?
Oh, no.
The audience got one episode of her and binned her on 4 votes. Fair enough, really. The next season, the first to go is Donut, the rudest object on his team. The season after that, it was Pencil, who ran her alliance the way a small country runs a coup. Same story each time. The audience met the nastiest character in the room and then showed them the door, which seems sensible enough until you notice that usually the nastiest character in the show is often the one making the show worth watching. And it isn't only the villains who pay for it, though we'll get to who else does. Years later, under a different set of rules, that same Flower stuck around long enough to get a full rewrite, and she won the entire show. The villain they threw out on site came back as the champion, once the system finally gave her the room to become something else. For 16 years, this show has handed the remotes to its own audience, and how that audience is allowed to vote has decided which characters get executed on first impression and which ones get the time to grow into something better. Lately, it has also produced bribery, death threats, and a hashtag campaign to save a pillow. All of this traces back to one decision 2 kids made in 2010. They let you vote. In case you didn't watch my last BFDI video, let me clarify how I got here, because I'm not a lifer. I came to object shows late, and honestly, I bounced off the earlier episodes. And then, more recently, I came back around to them. And the thing that's kept me watching, more than any character, more than any season, is the voting. Because it's such a clever piece of design, especially on somewhere like YouTube. What hooked me though, is that everything I know about reality TV tells me that fan voting is a nightmare, because it's such a damned minefield. And BFDI's version of it was put together by a couple of kids. So, here's the question I couldn't let go of. A homemade voting system. No rulebook, no oversight. How has it held up over 16 years and millions of voters? What's broken it? Where does it stand now? And what can it do next? Before we discuss that, most of you guys watching this now aren't actually subscribed. If you want to support me in doing video essays like this that not many other people are doing, then please hit the button. It's free and it's an easy way to support the channel. Thank you. Back to the video. Act 1. The mechanism. The machine itself ran on string and good intentions. At the end of an episode, each contestant up for elimination was given a letter, and you, the viewer, left a comment with that letter in square brackets to mark whoever you wanted gone. Most votes lost. That was the whole apparatus. And it's worth putting that next to a grown-up who runs a public vote. As an example, Survivor has decades of production behind it and a legal department to match. BFDI had 2 children and a YouTube comment box. Children, as an electorate, like to keep things simple. In the words of this fan, I remember Tantasaur saying object shows should have contestant voting. Young kids, the main audience of object shows, have black and white morality, meaning they'll probably vote for the mean character. So that's why your favourite characters are gone quickly. A small child with a ballot is going to send the meanest contestant in the room home because, to a small child, mean is the entire character study. The reasoning runs, she was horrible to Bubble, get her out! It's the moral universe of a 7-year-old, which tracks, given a fair few of the voters were about 7. This produced a pattern so reliable that the fandom worked it out long before I turned up. As this fan says, this was the reason that Flower was eliminated first in BFDI, Donut was eliminated first in Battle for Dream Island again, and Pencil was eliminated first in Battle for BFDI. 3 seasons running, and the first boot each time was the designated villain. To be fair to the audience, plenty of harmless, well-liked characters got binned early too. A vote is simply a blunt instrument. The villains simply went first, and they went reliably, which is the part that matters. Act 2. The cost. Voting off the villain feels like a win every time you do it. The horrible one is gone. The characters you were rooting for live another week, and justice has been served on a Flower. The bill for it arrives later, and it arrives all at once. You see, a competition show needs someone to lose to. The engine is friction. An alliance to distrust. A schemer working 2 episodes ahead of everyone else. Take that away, and the challenges keep coming, and the eliminations keep coming, and none of it lands because nobody's left you feeling that strongly about it in either direction. It's like playing a football match where the referee sends off anyone who commits a tackle. Technically it's still football, but you're gonna have empty stands pretty darn soon. The fans felt this for years. One put it plainly. Why do the fans have to eliminate all the good contestants? The word holding that sentence up is good. The contestant being Maud is usually some argumentative, difficult troublemaker. Good in the one sense a show lives or die on, which is good to watch. That fan has put their finger on what the show gets wrong. It asks the audience which character they like, when the question a story needs answered is which character it can't afford to lose. The two are hardly ever the same object. You'd patch such a problem the obvious way. If the audience keeps executing your villains, you write new ones and keep the friction topped up, the way any show would. And yet BFDI couldn't. And the reason they couldn't is the strangest thing about the way the entire show is built. Act 3. The Survivor Trap. The obvious fix fails for a reason baked into the show's DNA, and it traces back to the format BFDI copied. You see, Survivor, the show that all of this descends from, has a built-in superpower. Most seasons it throws the entire cast out and starts afresh. A new set of strangers, a fresh set of villains, nobody you've got any history with. And the host was blunt about why. Why would we want returning players? Not yet. Time is on our side. You see, that clean slate is the engine. Every season, Survivor manufactures a brand new villain for free. Because every season, the villain is a stranger that the audience only now is learning to dislike. The drama renews itself because the cast does. BFDI took Survivor's competition format and threw out that exact mechanism. Nobody on BFDI leaves. They get eliminated and then they rejoin or turn up again 2 seasons later. Or sit in the loser area waiting for a way back. The roster only ever grows. It's a 16-year reunion where attendance is mandatory and nobody is allowed to die. Admittedly, that permanence is a big reason why people absolutely love the show. You've followed these characters for over a decade. You love them like neighbours. But it also does something brutal to any new arrival. A newcomer walks into a room where the audience has spent years building loyalties to everyone else, carrying none of that goodwill themselves. So, just add a fresh villain was never actually going to work. Drop a new, deliberately unpleasant character into that room under the old rules, and you've handed the audience the easiest vote they'll ever cast. The person they don't know behaving badly with nobody to shield them. The villain written to refill the tank goes out the door first, faster than any villains already there. The thing that makes BFDI special. The permanent cast you grow up with is the same thing that made the villain drain impossible to fix by adding characters. A tested format would probably have caught that collision before launch. 2 teenagers, writing the rules as they went, found out the way they found out everything else. Live, in public, 1 episode at a time. And all of this left a single lever to pull. If you can't change the cast and you can't keep the villains alive by writing more of them, the only thing left to change is the vote. Act 4. The fix. So, partway through the 4th season, the show changed the vote. And the fix was almost insultingly simple. Instead of voting for who you wanted gone, you now voted for who you wanted to keep, and the contestant with the fewest votes was out. Basically the same machine, just with 1 wire reversed. And yet, reversing that 1 wire changed everything, because it handed the people who loved the character a job to do. Under the old rules, if you adored some loud, difficult contestant, you could only sit and watch everyone else vote them off. Under the new rules, you could keep them alive. Which, in a roundabout kind of way, brings us back to Flower, the most hated character in the show, the first object ever eliminated, 4 votes and out. Under Vote to Save, however, and her fans finally had a lever to save her. And they pulled it hard enough that in 1 episode, she survived by a single vote. 10,566 people voting to keep Flower against 10,565 fighting to keep the character she edged out. Yes, there was just 1 vote in it. Staying in bought her something the old system never let a villain have: time. And the animators used it. Across the season, Flower's rudeness was toast down. She spent her energy trying to win the others round instead of threatening them, and by the finale, she did something season 1 Flower would have found incomprehensible. She won, and they gave her prizes away, and made amends with a cast she'd spent a decade terrorizing. 48,000 people voted to crown the character their predecessors had executed on sight. It was the animators who wrote that redemption. Admittedly, by the time the fans saved her, the rewrite was already underway, but the fact she survived let the animators finish it. What the vote did was smaller and stranger. It kept her on screen long enough for the redemption to be worth writing. It was a serious bug, and the kids who'd written the rules grew up up and patched it, and for a while it looked like a clean save. But it wasn't clean for everyone. Plenty of fans watched Flower's late surge and smelled a fix. Even if I didn't like the finalist, BFB 29 was pretty much rigged for Flower to win at BFB. Her character development was rushed, and the penultimate episode didn't bother hiding the obvious favoritism towards Flower. That suspicion, the sense that the new system had started picking winners of its own, turned out to be the thread that unravels the whole thing. Act 5. The Shadow of the Fix. Vote to Save sounds like the gentler system, and in a sense, it is. The catch is that it turns the entire show into a popularity contest. And a popularity contest rewards one thing above all else: the size of your fan base. The character who had the best episode can go home, while the character who did nothing all week strolls on, providing their fan club turns up to vote. The fans clocked this immediately, and they were not best pleased. As this fan stated, more entertaining contestants, Remote, Needle, Puffball, Coiny, Gatey, are being eliminated simply because either they don't have too much relevance in the episode, or they don't have the massive fan bases that keep voting the same character no matter what. So it's basically the same flaw, just reincarnated. Where the old system reliably executed your villains, the new one began culling your most interesting characters whenever they had the bad luck to be less popular than a crowd favourite coasting through on an off week. It's the same wound, just moved an inch to the left, and it hits one group harder than anyone: the new arrivals. The newcomers had it worst of all. Vote to Save took a new character's disadvantage and made it fatal. To survive, now you needed a fanbase voting to keep you, and a character who turned up 4 minutes ago hasn't had the time to grow one. The clearest casualty was Balloony, dropped onto a team of fan favourites and voted out first the instant the new rules landed. As this fan put it, Balloony got eliminated, yet he did nothing to deserve it. So, to last long enough for the audience to love you, you had to first be loved. The system had built a perfect trap. You couldn't turn a fanbase without surviving, and yet you couldn't survive without a fanbase. It's a catch-22, am I right? All of that, popularity outrunning merit, newcomers frozen out, is the annoying part. What comes next is the serious part, and it starts, of course, with the maths. Vote to Save made the races impossibly close. When the whole audience is voting to keep characters alive, the gap between surviving and going home shrinks to almost nothing. Lately, most eliminations have come down to less than a single percent between the bottom two. One result was settled by 0.2%, a margin so fine it's a coin landing on its edge. And when every vote feels like it personally decides whether your favourite lives or dies, people stop behaving like people. The first sign was the bribery. With his character Nickel up for elimination, a voice actor, an influential figure in the community, the creator of Another Object show, offered to hand out free plushies if Nickel survived.
Okay, so Nickel is up for elimination in TPOT 9. If he survives to TPOT 10, I will give away 5 Nickel plushies to 5 of you guys here. You don't have to vote for him to stay, but if he survives, I will do a giveaway of 5 Nickel plushies. You heard it here first.
The WikiZone account calls it very controversial. Nickel was eliminated anyway, and the plushies went out regardless. Then it turned genuinely nasty. A character called Pillow became a lightning rod. Her fans and her detractors organised into rival hashtag campaigns, as though the survival of a cartoon cushion were a general election. Being on the wrong side of it got your wiki edits defaced, and at the worst end, got you death threats. Which is just mind-blowing in the worst possible way. One fan tried to describe what it was like to simply be on the losing side of the vote. So imagine this. You're a 13-year-old fan of Pillow and you say, "Pillow is life, Pillow is love." People literally send you death threats and say you should self-delete now. People hate Pillow so much, they vandalize wiki pages. So, there's the case for the prosecution. The fix that say Flower soured bars into bribery, harassment, and threats of violence over who survives a children's cartoon. Scrap the vote then, put the adults back in charge. Except that's the exact moment this story turns over. Because the voting might be the best thing that ever happened to this show. Act 6, the twist. For all the mess, the voting is the single most important thing this show ever did. Because if you take it away, what you don't get is a better behaved fandom. You actually get no fandom at all. Because just think about what the vote asks of you, the viewer. Most cartoons want you to sit there and receive them, the way you'd receive the weather. BFDI hands you a say in who lives and who dies, and at the moment you've cast a vote, you've got a stake in the outcome. A character you're protecting, a result you're invested in. The watching has turned into playing. thing. That turns ordinary viewers into something far more committed. People make hour-long prediction videos breaking down the likely vote with the focus of election night analysts, running the numbers on old eliminations to forecast the next one. The show built itself a fan base that does unpaid overtime, and it did it by handing them a ballot. And the sheer scale of it is frankly hard to take in. A cartoon two teenagers started in a bedroom now fills cinemas. Sold out screenings, fans travelling in by tens of thousands across a tour. Millions of views an episode. Award nominations on the shelf. You see, you don't get on a train for a show you're only half watching. In my view, it was the vote that made these people turn up. And even the creator of the show himself feels slightly amazed by the whole situation. In the words of Carrie Hwang, we would not know as the creators who was going to win our own show. So part of me was like, I want to finish the season because I'm curious, is Leafy going to win? Is Fiery going to win? The very people making the show don't get to decide who wins it. They animate every frame and yet they can't tell you who'll still be standing at the end because that part was never theirs to write. It was the audience's, and that's a great thing. None of which excuses the ugly side, and I need to be clear about that. The bribery was wrong, the death threats were wrong, and they belong squarely to the people who send them. But abuse at the edges isn't something the vote invented. It's what every large online fandom produces once it gets big enough. Football crowds being the obvious example, long before anyone drew a face on a pencil. So, the vote made the fandom huge, and a huge fandom anywhere on the internet drags some poison with it. So, switching the vote off leaves the toxicity exactly where it is, and throws away the one thing that built everything worth having. Act 7. The honest landing. So, the vote is a mess that can't be cleaned up and can't be thrown out. Which sounds like a probably unique to a cartoon made by amateurs, until you look at how the professionals themselves are getting on. You see, every show that lets the public vote actually ends up here. The UK version of X Factor often has seasons where the audience saves a joke act for laughs and overrides the result the show was built to produce. I'm a Celebrity had viewers voting the same contestant into every trial out of spite until the broadcaster brought in a rule to stop it. And these are the most tested voting systems on television, run by networks with lawyers and decades of practice. And every one of them right now is fiddling with the rules to stop the public ruining the thing that the public turned up for. So the homemade version Two Kids built is hitting the exact wall everyone hits, with none of the budget, and patching itself the same way the professionals do. The fact that it's held itself together for 16 years starts to actually look like a small miracle. And none of this means that the change they did make to the voting system was a mistake. The old vote executed Flower on site, and the new one let her grow into the best character in the show. That's the trade. You take the popularity contestants and the vote wars, and in exchange, a Flower gets to exist. Which brings us back to where all of this goes next. And the answer is that the creators are still tinkering. When the 2026 season started, the votes stopped deciding who went home. Eliminations ran on challenge placement instead. The comment box was still there, fans still voted every episode, but for the first time, nobody knew what those votes were for. The answer came with the finale. All along, in secret, they'd been choosing the winner. 16 years in, the thing that's defined this show is still being rebuilt in public, live, the way it has been since the beginning. And that's the honest answer to the question I started with. No public vote is fair, and this one never pretended to be. What it did was turn a flash cartoon by two children into something a generation grew up voting on. It gave us the cinemas, and it gave us the death threats. It executed Flower, and then it crowned her. They handed you the remote 16 years ago, and they're still working out whether that was actually the right thing. And at the end of this video, so are we. Smash that like button if you want to see more BFDI content from your boy Snipe Snap. I'm happy to do it, but I want to see a hell of a lot of likes, okay? I want to see that passion from this famous fandom. Till next time, Snipe Snap out.